About 2,700 years ago, a single night outside the walls of Jerusalem may have decided whether the Jewish people would survive at all. At that time, the ancient Near East was dominated by one superpower, Assyria. Its armies were feared for their speed, brutality, and efficiency. Kingdom after kingdom fell before them. Not long before they reached Jerusalem, they had already destroyed the northern kingdom of Israel. Its people were deported, scattered across the empire, and largely lost to history. Those are the communities we now call the 10 lost tribes, with the north crushed and its identity slowly dissolving into the Assyrian world. The small southern kingdom of Judah was all that remained of the people of Israel as a political entity. Its capital was Jerusalem. Its king was Hezekiah. And when he rebelled against Assyria, refusing to remain a loyal vassal, he was effectively placing that last remnant of Israelite independence in the crosshairs of the most powerful military machine of its age. The Assyrian king Sennacherib responded in the way Assyrian kings always did. He marched. Fortified cities of Judah fell one by one. Archaeology and Assyrian inscriptions agree that a major city, Lachish, was devastated. The destruction was so complete and so satisfying to Assyrian pride that they carved it into stone reliefs to show off their victory. For those living in Jerusalem, these weren't distant stories. They were warnings of what was coming next. The biblical books of 2 Kings, Isaiah, and 2 Chronicles describe this moment as a time of terror and taunting. Assyrian officials stood outside the walls of Jerusalem, shouting in the people's own language that their God could not save them, that Hezekiah was a fool, and that resistance was pointless. Inside the city, there was no realistic military hope. A small, besieged hilltop city was facing the same empire that had already erased the northern kingdom from the map. This is where the stakes become enormous. If Jerusalem had fallen the way Samaria had fallen, if Judah had been fully conquered and its population deported like the northern tribes, then the story of the Jewish people might have ended there. The people of Judah could have gone the way of the 10 lost tribes, scattered through foreign lands, slowly absorbed into larger cultures, their distinct identity fading over generations. No Jerusalem, no enduring kingdom of Judah, no later return from exile, no second temple, no rabbinic Judaism. The chain of tradition that eventually produced the Jewish people as we know them today, and through them, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam as we recognize them, might never have formed. Everything hung on what would happen to that Assyrian army. According to the biblical account, King Hezekiah responded not with some clever military trick, but with prayer and humility. He sought the counsel of the prophet Isaiah and pleaded for divine help. The city had no strength left. If Judah was to be saved, it would not be by its own power. Then, the Bible describes a night that has fascinated and puzzled generations. In 2 Kings and Isaiah, the story is brief but dramatic. The angel of the Lord went out and struck down 185,000 in the camp of the Assyrians. When the survivors woke up the next morning, they found nothing but dead bodies. Sennacherib broke off the campaign and returned to his capital, Nineveh. Jerusalem remained unconquered. That is the first and most explicit ancient explanation. According to the Hebrew Bible, a direct supernatural act of God destroyed a vast portion of the Assyrian army in a single night. The agent is an angel. The scale is massive. The timing is precise. One night of divine judgment, and the superpower withdraws. For ancient Israelite faith, this is not just an event. It is a sign that the God of Judah could overturn the mightiest empire on earth. Later Jewish traditions build on this picture. Rabbinic sources and midrashic stories often keep the core idea, a sudden, devastating divine blow, but add vivid detail. In some tellings, the angel's breath, or a single blast, causes the Assyrians to die where they sleep. In others, the emphasis is on their being struck down without a sword being raised by human hands. These interpretations stay close to the biblical narrative, but underline one point. It was God alone who brought this catastrophe on the Assyrian army. On the other side, we have Assyrian records. Sennacherib left behind inscriptions in cuneiform, most famously on what's called the Taylor prism. There, He boasts about his campaign against Judah. He says he captured many fortified cities, deported their inhabitants, and shut up Hezekiah in Jerusalem like a caged bird. He lists the tribute Hezekiah sent him: gold, silver, precious goods. What Sennacherib does not say is striking. He never claims to have captured Jerusalem. For an Assyrian king, whose public inscriptions were designed to brag about victories, silence on such a conquest is meaningful. If he had taken the city, it is extremely likely he would have said so. Instead, the Assyrian version of events ends with a besieged king paying tribute and remaining on his throne. Ancient Assyrian texts do not mention a plague, a miracle, or a mass death in the camp. From their point of view, the story is simple. The empire punished the rebel, extracted wealth, and moved on. Any setback, embarrassment, or catastrophe would have been quietly omitted. So their option is not an explanation, but a conspicuous silence. The army comes, the king submits, the army goes. No disaster is recorded, but the survival of Jerusalem is left hanging in the background. A third ancient strand comes from the Greek historian Herodotus, writing centuries later. In his histories, he tells a story about an army of the king of Assyria that marches against Egypt during the reign of a priest king named Sethos. In Herodotus's account, the Egyptian king prays to his god for help. During the night, a vast number of field mice invade the Assyrian camp and gnaw through their bowstrings and shield straps. Deprived of their weapons, the Assyrians are thrown into chaos and suffer a disastrous defeat. Herodotus does not mention Jerusalem or Hezekiah, and he sets this episode in Egypt, not Judah. Still, ancient and modern readers have noticed familiar patterns: an Assyrian army, a devout ruler praying to his god, a sudden nighttime calamity striking the invaders' camp, and a humiliating withdrawal. Some Jewish and Christian interpreters in antiquity began to see Herodotus' mouse story as another reflection, however distorted, of the same underlying reality. Somewhere in this period, an Assyrian force was undone overnight in a way people remembered as divine intervention. In later interpretation, those mice are often read symbolically as carriers of disease. Rodents, filth, close-packed camps, all of this points to another widely discussed possibility: plague. Ancient writers didn't have modern germ theory, but they knew that certain conditions were regularly followed by outbreaks of deadly illness. For them, that too was an act of the gods. So if we gather the ancient voices, what options do we have? First, the straightforward biblical option: a supernatural catastrophe. An angel of the Lord strikes down 185,000 Assyrian soldiers in a single night, and the army breaks off the siege. Second, the elaborated Jewish tradition: the same divine act, described in more detail. The Assyrians die in their sleep or are felled by an invisible blast or breath, with the emphasis on a miraculous, non-human victory. Third, the Assyrian royal inscriptions. They acknowledge that Jerusalem was never taken and that Hezekiah remained king, but they offer no explanation. From their side, the option is that nothing embarrassing is reported. If there was a catastrophe, it is buried in silence. Fourth, the Herodotian version. An Assyrian or allied army is suddenly ruined in the night by a plague of mice that destroy their weapons, leading to defeat. This is remembered as an intervention by the Egyptian god, but it echoes the pattern of a nighttime disaster in an Assyrian camp. Later Jewish and Christian writers, reflecting on all this, frequently merge these possibilities. They speak of an angel and a plague, or of a divine judgment that took the form of disease. In their minds, God's direct action and a deadly pestilence are not competing explanations, but two sides of the same story. Modern readers can see how these strands connect. Cramped tents, marginal hygiene, contaminated water, rodents and fatigue make epidemic disease not only possible but likely. At the same time, the timing and outcome, Jerusalem spared, an empire retreating from its prize, made the event feel like something far more than bad luck to those who lived through it. What makes this event so haunting is the combination of high stakes and incomplete answers. We know from multiple sources that Sennacherib's army devastated much of Judah, but did not capture Jerusalem. We know that the northern kingdom, earlier, had not been so fortunate. Its tribes were scattered and, over time, largely lost. We can see that if Jerusalem had fallen too, Judah could easily have followed the same path into exile and assimilation. In that sense, the catastrophe that struck the Assyrian forces, whatever exactly it was, stands as a turning point, not only in the history of a small kingdom, but in the survival of the Jewish people as a distinct community. The difference between the fate of the 10 tribes and the fate of Judah may come down, at least in part, to that one night of disaster in the Assyrian camp. And yet, precisely how that disaster unfolded remains hidden. Was it, as the Bible says, an angelic strike that no historian's tools can fully grasp? Was it, as later interpreters suggest, a plague sweeping through the camp, remembered and retold as divine judgment? Was it, as Herodotus suggests in another context, a sudden, uncanny invasion of vermin destroying the invaders' ability to fight? Or did Assyrian scribes quietly erase a humiliating setback from their public story, leaving only a conspicuous gap where an explanation should be? We can line up the texts. We can analyze archaeological layers. We can compare campaigns and patterns from other times and places. But at the center of all our inquiry remains a space we cannot fully fill in. We can say with reasonable confidence that something went badly wrong for Sennacherib's army, and that this failure helped ensure that Judah, and through it the Jewish people, did not vanish like so many conquered nations. We cannot, with equal confidence, say exactly what that something was, so we are left with a stark, simple outline. An empire advanced, certain of victory. A small city prayed and prepared to die. A catastrophe struck the besieging army. The city did not fall. The people of Judah survived, where the northern tribes had not. Between those clear points lies a mystery that ancient sources describe in different, sometimes conflicting ways, and that modern scholarship can narrow but not solve. You can look at that gap and see the hand of God, or the hand of disease, or the hand of historical chance. But the fact remains, without that catastrophe to the Assyrian army, it is very likely that Judah would have shared the fate of the 10 lost tribes, and the story of the Jewish people might have ended in the shadow of Sennacherib's empire. Instead, Jerusalem stood. Judah endured. And what exactly happened in the darkness outside its walls remains one of history's most intriguing open questions.